Hello, everyone. I'm Brady Briggs here for another episode of the Combat Logic. Joining me today again is Tyler Avery. Today we're going to talk about Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley and how it went down. No,
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of this fight? A lot of people seemed to like it, and then a lot of people didn't.
I enjoyed watching it just because of the excitement and the buildup. It seems like it's a chess match is a little more exciting when you have all that buildup behind it. So even though like it was kind of a slow match, I did enjoy what I got out of it, which was getting to see a lot more of what Jake Paul brings to the table. He's got a little bit of fight in him. He's willing to overcome adversity. I saw that was a big deal to me. Tyron kind of fought like he has been fighting in the UFC, kind of gun shy. Didn't really know how to set up his shots in boxing. Kind of like I said in the last video, I didn't see him opening up and setting up with feints and jabs as much as Paul was, and that was kind of exactly what happened. He didn't really know how to set up his shots the same way he would in MMA because he didn't have the takedown threat, or the overhand was less of a factor because of that, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I was very surprised we didn't see that shuffle step out of him, to be honest with you, because I don't think Jake has seen that before. And he didn't throw it. You're right. He didn't really know how to set him up. He did crack him a number of times, and he ended up hurting him in that fourth or fifth round. I think it was the fifth.
He did a good job of, well, he struggled at first with it, but he did a good job towards the middle and the end of the fight, trying to corral Jake into corners and along the edge. And I thought that there was a lot of moments where if he would have just put everything into a big overhand, even he would have had a lot of opportunities even to land those. Not that that's much about the sweet science, but it probably would have been enough to win, in my opinion, if he would have been a little more active when he had those moments.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's why he wants the rematch so bad, because he knows that if he was more active, he may have gotten it. But I want to go back to you saying how Jake has some fight in him. That's really cool. I was so happy to see that, because in his first four fights, I mean, his first, like his amateur fight went like the fourth or fifth round, but since then we haven't seen him go past round two. I thought that if it went past like the fourth or fifth, he was going to get really tired and maybe even get finished, but he didn't. Like he gutted through it. He still fought well the remaining four rounds. He was still picking Tyron apart for the majority of it, whether he was getting chased around the ring or not. He looked really good, man. I'm very excited because he did a lot better than anybody else with 3 years of boxing would have done against someone like Tyron Woodley.
He is somewhat of a natural that you can't really deny that. You said that before he had gone 4 rounds before, but I think the difference is now is he went 4 rounds before, not because of adversity, but more because of not frustration, but inexperience. He wasn't able to probably do all the things that he probably was able to do in training. It was hard to put it all together, especially versus a non-technical opponent. Sometimes when you have a non-technical opponent in front of you and you've been training with technical opponents, it kind of throws you off for a second. You're like, why I'm getting wild stuff thrown at me now? It's not, smart point fighting, and sometimes that affects it. And with an inexperienced fighter, I think that's why it got drawn out. This time, I think the fight was as long as it was because he had adversity. It wasn't an easy fight. I don't think that he was as frustrated in there, and he kind of knew what he had to do, but he had to climb over some hills to do it. He got a second wind. I thought that he was starting to tire out in the fourth rounds, or maybe he had felt a couple power shots and he had lost a little bit of confidence momentarily. But I saw him starting to fade a little bit, and he seemed to catch a second wind and pull through towards the end.
Yeah, that was really exciting to see because, like we said about how he said he was going to drag Tyron in deep waters, we both knew that wasn't going to happen. But he actually completed the whole 8 rounds, and he continued doing what he was doing in the first couple rounds in the 7th and 8th. He can stay on his bike. His defense is actually really good too. He only got caught clean like 2-3 times, only one of them by a really hard shot. I'm I'm actually like a lot of people are talking shit on him. I'm kind of blown away by his performance, honestly. I really am because I did not expect him to beat Tyron over 8 rounds.
Yeah, and Tyron, even I like sometimes I would be like, well, Tyron had a terrible game plan, or this guy had a terrible game plan, but that wasn't the case here.
Yeah.
Tyron didn't even blow his gas tank out in the first few rounds. He almost wanted to be like, you're not taking me into deep waters. I'm going to take you into deep waters. And 4-5 rounds into the fight, it almost looked like that was happening.
Yep.
Maybe into the third and fourth round, maybe that looked like that was happening. And then in the fourth and fifth, Jake pulled through and got a second win.
Yeah, it was really interesting, man, because Logan is not like that. When Logan gets tired, he just holds. And,
He's
all
bulky.
they really have to see from that is his pro debut that he lost because he didn't know the rules of the sport, and then his fight with Floyd Mayweather. But Jake fought a more dangerous opponent, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, Tyron's always been
Bigger
more
chance
dangerous.
to get finished, especially with the weight difference and all that.
Yeah,
It's a lot different.
They're a lot closer to the weights. Tyron Woodley has been an active fighter lately, whether he lost his last 4 fights or not. All 4 of those defeats are top 5 ranked fighters right now.
Also, matchups make fights, so it's not that Tyron's the better boxer, obviously, than Floyd. It's just the way they match up. It was a tougher hill to climb for Jake.
Yeah, for sure. What did you think about the decision? I know you told me last night.
Oh man,
Put it out there.
I'm not always super technical with the points and the scoring, but I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how they could have said it was a draw, let alone someone gave
No,
it
yeah,
to
me
Tyron.
neither.
I think that it's all this. It's the boxing shenanigans,
It's so clearly Jake won that fight 5-3, if not even 6-2, just like you said last night. That's how I scored. I scored at 6-2, but I was like, maybe I'm a little biased right now. And then you said that, and it made me feel a little better.
Yeah, and he didn't look like a world beater. He didn't go out there and smash him, but in boxing, you win the rounds, you win the fight, regardless of who does what damage. And that's why I thought also the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury fight was ridiculous, because the only real effective boxing was when he landed those big shots in the later rounds. Other than that, Fury outboxed him, and it was like a similar thing. It's like, why are they giving so much credit to the one punch that staggered him into the ropes?
Yeah, I know. I mean, that gives him the round. It doesn't even give him a 10-8 round because he wasn't even dropped.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
It barely won him the round, really, because in the rounds where except for one of the rounds, in the round when he landed a big shot, he was getting touched as well. It's not like those rounds were all going his way and he landed the big shot. It's he was getting touched up too.
Yeah, Jake kept those jabs going to the head and body. He kept those crosses going to the body. I really liked that. And you can tell when you're watching him, you can tell he's not the most experienced, but you can tell that he retains the information. He's doing things the right way. He just needs for his punches to, roll over the right way. Like when he connects, it looks a little amateurish, but he's doing so well for only have gone 3 years in the sport.
I will say he looked slightly even more composed in the Ben Askren fight for the little bit that we did see him, because I feel like he was less afraid.
Yeah.
So when he went in versus Tyron, he was a lot more afraid, and I feel like how he reacted to punches was different. How he moved around the ring was different. He even said after the fight, in the post fight, he said, "I don't know what was happening. My legs felt weird. I'll tell you what was happening.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad
you had nerves. You had real nerves."
That's what I said. Yeah.
And I saw it in the fight that he looked a little awkward moving around the ring in there. And we didn't really have a chance to see him really move too much around the ring,
Right.
or at least after he's had punches thrown at him a little bit more, or he's gotten hit a little bit more, stuff starts to go out the window. We didn't get a chance to see that until tonight.
That's what I chalked it up to, is we hadn't been able to see it, but there's a lot of things we learned in this fight. Like, he's not a combination puncher like we suspected, but he's got a lot of pretty good basic punches. His footwork is not great, but it's not bad. It kept him out of danger for like 23 of those 24 minutes. Yeah, he's done pretty well. Let's talk about Tommy Fury's fight against, what was it? Anthony Taylor. How did that one go?
I was kind of, I don't know. I don't know if Taylor was the tough opponent or Fury wasn't that impressive, or I don't know what it was. It seemed like Fury was doing the right things, throwing accurate punches. Maybe he headhunted a little bit, but I don't know. It just not much. There, I wish it was a longer match. In boxing, sometimes there's investments that you make that they didn't really have time to make, and I don't know. The fight overall wasn't that exciting, even
No,
though
it
I
wasn't.
went into it not thinking too much of it because I knew that it's not necessarily going to be, you know, it's not gonna be Tyson Fury, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not the same thing just because they associate with each other all the time. But it really it wasn't, it was a low level boxing match like I expected.
Yeah. I mean, what I thought about that, I thought there was no reason that Tommy shouldn't finish Anthony, just given like they're at least 3 weight classes apart, if not more. Because boxing is
Look
like every 6 or 7 pounds.
huge.
Yeah, dude, he's so big compared to him. Anthony Taylor, 7'5" as a mixed martial artist, 0-1 as a boxer. But I got Tommy Fury's record right here. And I said this going in. His debut was against a 10, 102, and 3 opponent. So obviously that's a terrible record, but that motherfucker has like 120 fights. Okay, that's fine. Next, 0-26. Next, 2-26. 0-11. 0-9. The fight before this
Almost
was
laughable.
yeah. The fight before this was his best opponent. He fought a 2-0, and now he fought an 0-1. It's like I don't understand why. I mean, you helped me realize this yesterday that he's Jake Paul's teammate. Anthony Taylor is. So he probably wanted to see how he did against him. So
Yeah.
you can see
He
how his
wanted to
fight
say,
was.
I know what I can do versus this guy. Let's see what
Mhm.
he can do versus this guy. So I feel more
Exactly.
comfortable signing that dotted line.
Yeah, exactly. I think he could get some confidence from that performance. I mean, I don't think Tommy looked just like I said, Jake is better than his brother. Tommy ain't anywhere near any of his brothers. Like I don't I mean the other Furies other than Tyson are all right. They're not great, but I didn't see that awfully much from him. I really thought that he could have looked a lot better.
And honestly, he fights a lot like Tyson, but at a weight class where that style isn't as effective.
Yeah.
Tyson Fury is super effective with that style, just the same way Muhammad Ali was, because it's a rare talent in that division. You go down a few divisions and it's not as rare anymore. It's not as special. That's what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. But in my opinion, there's less hype involved with the younger Fury.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think a fight between them two looks? Fury just improved his record to 7-0. He only had 10 amateur fights too. And Jake obviously had one and now he's 4-0. How do you see that fight going? Should that happen?
I like that fight if Jake decides to do what he said he was going to do and take time uh away from the sport, which I think he says take time away from the sport. I think he means take time to train and get better
Yeah,
behind the scenes without people knowing,
I
and
think that's
then
what it means
come
too.
back ready for all the shit he's been talking. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So I feel like if he does that, he works on his cardio, maybe he gets a new diet. I mean, he probably has the best of the best. It's hard to imagine him not, but maybe
Yeah.
take more seriously the diet, the strength and conditioning, get the cardio up, because that's one thing that I think Fury still would outpace him still as they sit today.
Hmm.
Uh, I think as they sit today, Fury would beat him, not devastatingly, but just because boxing fundamentals are just stronger and he has probably a little more cardio, is probably a little more in shape. But
Yeah.
I think down the road that fight could be plausible and could that's a winnable fight for Paul if he sits down and puts the work in, comes back next year.
Yeah. I think that would be super interesting because I think we said something about this earlier. Tyson or not Tyson Fury. Tommy Fury just had a 4-round fight last night against an 0-1 opponent. He's had more fights than Jake, while Jake had an 8-round fight against an 0-0, but a multiple time world champion in MMA. I feel like
Yep.
They might have even done that on purpose just to make Tommy look bad. Like whoever was promoting the event, I know Jake's team was promoting it. So maybe they had something in the contracts where he was in a 4-round fight just so they could say something about it. Because I'm sure Tommy can probably go 8, you know.
He looked like he could have gone more.
Yeah, for sure. Like the Jake fight, I was honestly hoping that was 6 rounds. I was really worried about it being 8. But I'm really glad it was 8 at this point.
But at the same time, that's the best record for a fighter that Fury has faced.
Yeah, it is. It's twice as good. The
And
best
they
fighter you
called
can go is 2-0.
they called him MMA veteran. He had what was his record? 7-5
Yeah.
so it's like veteran or whatever you want to call it. You can call it a veteran if you want, but I mean, yes, he's experienced in fighting, but I think they were just trying to juice it up and make it look like it was more than just an 0-1 fighter fighting on a main card.
Yeah, they definitely did. They gave him a lot of camera time. They
A lot
gave
of credit for his MMA career that I haven't really heard of, but
Yeah, me either. Well, something about his MMA career I just found out yesterday, like before the fights. I'm trying to get my fucking phone to load here. He actually fought Adam Borsch and somebody else. Yeah, he fought Adam Borsch and James Gallagher in Bellator. They
okay.
both submitted him. He's been submitted in all of his losses, but he'd never been knocked out, and he still hasn't ever been knocked out. I guess that's a feat for him, right?
Right.
He had a
And
very
I mean, it's not to knock him. It's just
no, not at all.
you
He just
gotta say it how it is, and some things stand out when you see a high level boxing event on
yeah,
Showtime, and you see these numbers that don't make sense, and it's like
right.
it's obvious you have to be too stupid to not pay attention to
Yeah,
that,
it's
to not see it.
only looking at the numbers, like 6'5", 5'7". I don't even know what their weights were, but I know goddamn well that he didn't weigh the same thing as Tommy.
He
Uh,
looked like he tried to weigh as much as he could. Do you see how thick his body was
oh,
for that
he's a
fight?
big dude. I mean, for
He's
being
short and
short.
thick,
Yeah,
but he's not. Those are different weight class fighters.
yeah, they are, and it's a different sport too. Like I see MMA guys going to boxing, obviously, but he's 0-1 fighting an undefeated fighter. It just doesn't. I don't agree with that. Like if I was
Absolutely.
Tommy, I wouldn't have accepted that fight. I don't think.
Right.
But what about the end of it where Jake Paul talked Tyron Woodley into keeping the bet they made prior just so he could have another bet made, the immediate rematch? Do you think he should
Yeah,
take the immediate rematch?
I think I was thinking about this earlier before I get into what I think about that. Paul I feel like Paul feels like he has to make decisions on the fly and make it seem like that he knew and had a plan all along. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like you can see him, they'll be like, do you want to do the rematch? Why don't you want to do the rematch? And he's like doesn't know what to say, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Really he should just stick to the original script and say, I'm gonna talk to my coaches, we're gonna see
Yeah,
what's best for me. But he didn't want to back down from the
right.
challenge on TV, and the reaction to that was really interesting. And I think all that transpired because of the crowd and
Mm-hmm.
because Paul didn't really know what to say and how to react to that. And I feel like he always wants to seem like he knows how to react to
Yeah, he
everything.
does. He's that person.
Yeah. So when he was like kind of confused, he's like, of course. Yeah, we'll do it. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't think it's a smart idea. Like Tyron already
No.
made that bet with you, man. And Logan tried to fucking help him out. He's like, Tyron, you're old news, man. You just had your shot. And then he still talks him into it. Dude, what I love is Jake's reaction. As soon as he says, get that tattoo and we'll do a rematch, they shake hands and look on his face. Like he's such a nutcase, dude. And he doesn't care. I love it.
He realizes that he digs himself a hole and he's like, well,
He
we'll roll with
did.
it.
Yeah, he definitely did. Whether Tyron comes out and fights better or not, I mean, it's just unnecessary, honestly. Like
And
he had the win, he grew from it.
and as an experienced athlete, the gap will be closer next time, guaranteed, because those adjustments, I mean, I'd hate to look dumb and say that he's gonna make the adjustments and he doesn't, but man, it's hard to imagine a world where he doesn't make these simple adjustments that are really basic, honestly. Like
Yeah.
he lost the fight on basic fundamentals
Hmm.
in a rule set. So I don't know, a little more time, and he could probably close the gap to make it even a better fight, make
Yeah,
Jake even fight more.
I think if there's an immediate rematch, um they'll both fill some gaps. They'll both make some adjustments. But I'd give Tyron a little bit better of a shot than I would against Jake in a rematch because he has fought rematches before and he's never lost a rematch.
Yeah, and all the adjustments and technical adjustments that he had to make versus these guys in the UFC, these adjustments are going to be so much more slight and so much more basic and so much they're fundamentals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just little things like setting up your punches. You know what I mean? Like if he would have set up a jab, mixed the jab from the head to the body, and then threw in use that to change levels and go with the
Mhm.
overhand, you would have had. I'm not saying you would have won the fight, but it would have been
A
way
lot
more
more
of a fight.
success. Yeah, if he would have set the punches up. He threw
And
maybe a
no jab at
handful.
all.
Yeah,
He
he made
did not utilize the jab whatsoever. Jake was utilizing a jab and he was feigning, and
mhm.
he didn't throw a lot of good combination punches. But what he would do is he would he'd finish his combination with a real punch, and he'd start with like half punches to like fake him out. Like he'd come in
Yeah.
with like kind of punches, and then he'd throw a hook that was real. So
To
it's like
feint it.
that's the beginning of combination punches.
Mhm. Yeah, you get him to think you're gonna throw one thing and then you throw another. I think
Absolutely.
that his jabs and that helped with his range and his defense a lot too because it kept Tyron at the end of his punches. He's 3 or 4 inches shorter than him.
Yeah, he didn't. And if you don't know how to set up your punches, you can't get on the inside.
Nope.
And you're not usually worried about getting in on the inside on someone and getting knocked out, because when you're the shorter, stockier guy, when you're the same weight, you're the power puncher, you're the hammer. You know what I mean? So if
Mhm.
you're also on the outside, the shorter guy, and the guy that you're fighting, you're worried about him knocking you out and being explosive, you're in for a long night. You got to
Yeah.
be willing to take those shots coming in and hit harder.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So that didn't happen.
No, my overall assessment of this is Tyron looked a bit like I thought he would. I was pretty sure he was gonna land a good shot, but Jake exceeded my expectations for sure.
Yeah. And
What about you?
how Jake won made a difference in this.
Yeah, dude, so much. Like he's gonna grow so much from this.
If he knocked out Tyron in the first round, people would be like, now, okay, he's a puncher. We'll admit he's a really good puncher, but he's not a boxer. And then
Mhm.
the next, performance, we might not see that much either. And then it'd be, he's all this, but not any of this.
Yeah, dude, he already won. He won 8 rounds and defied
Yeah,
all the
box.
odds. And I still see people on Facebook all over the place saying that he sucks and he has no business in there.
Yeah, he's
It's like,
not a
dude,
real fighter.
the one thing that we were looking for out of him, he showed us. We only needed to know one thing. We know we can knock people out. We know we can punch. We know he has a few different punches. No, we just needed to see that he's a fighter. He's a
Yeah,
fighter.
absolutely. And
Like,
he's not, I mean, I don't know how the argument even goes through people's
fuck me
minds,
either.
because he's not civilian. He just beat a a world champion with his hands. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, you're not civilian anymore. You're now athlete. You're now
right.
high level at of some level. You know what I mean? You're not like the everyday guy anymore. So the everyday guy, or even the guy who trains a little bit, has nowhere to speak on it
Hmm.
about who's not a fighter. If he's not a fighter, I'm not a fighter. If he,
Right.
so it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, who would you like to see next? Because before this was scheduled, Tyron was talked about, obviously. Now there's an immediate rematch. There was Chris Lieben, put his name in the hat, Mike Perry, Nate Diaz. Nate signed with the UFC, so he can't. Pretty sure Perry's gonna get released soon, so he probably could. Um, who would you like to see him fight next?
I don't want to see him take steps down though. And you know what?
That's a good point. That kind of would be a step down, wouldn't it?
Yeah, in a way, it might be more dangerous for someone who's willing to let his hands go with Mike Perry. But
Hmm. For sure.
but I don't know. I don't know who I want to see Jake fight next. It's got to be a step up, but not a crazy step up, because
Yeah,
he's already up there now. Like he should take his time and be
for
smart
sure.
about it. The
Because
same.
honestly, this was a big step up from Ben Askren.
Yeah,
That was a huge
he
step
was
up.
talking about Michael Bisping.
Oh my God, no, dude. Michael Bisping would fuck him up.
I think so too, but
Bisping's one of the better boxers ever in the sport of MMA.
And he's gonna go all the rounds.
Yeah, and not be tired at the end at all. Like that's
Right.
a terrible idea for him. I hope he doesn't do that.
I would like to watch it though, personally.
I would too.
Because the talking would be unreal.
Dude, that really would. Bisping's one of the better shit talkers ever.
They've been running their mouth to each other. So
that would be super interesting.
Yeah.
That really would. And I'm sure we'll find out in like the next month or so what's gonna be next for him at least. It doesn't usually take too long with him.
Right.
But I think that about wraps it up. I appreciate you for coming on and talking to me.
No problem, man.
Like and subscribe if you like the video. I appreciate y'all. Have a good one. Peace out, bud.